Hello, welcome to this new video where I'll share some of my experiences learned through my journey in the quality assurance and test automation field. I'm currently running a test automation company based in Milan, which is QArobots.ai, and if you do like test automation and quality assurance, make sure to stay to the end of this video where we will see the main 5 KPIs that I track in my personal work for my clients. So let's start. Which are the 5 most crucial KPIs in the QA and test automation field? So the main 5 KPIs that we want to track when we create a QA process and a test automation infrastructure are these 5. Let's start from the first one, which I would say here is the test automation coverage. So basically here you can interpret this metric in 2 different ways. In some of the most structured companies and clients I've worked with, you start from the requirements, which have either stories, epics, and then tasks. And based on the granular level that you want your test automation to be, you can then create here an end-to-end test, or more on a functional level test automation. So you can either decide which type of test to create and what to track, but basically you have it starting from the requirements, or in places where you don't have this definition of stories and epics, you may start with functional areas that you sort of create via inspection with a product owner or business analyst that works on the project. So these 2 are the main 2 parts involving the test automation coverage, and is basically how many tests, the number of tests that basically cover the requirements. And so let's say we have about, in this case, let's make it for easier understanding, starting from the stories. Let's say you have 100 stories. Let's say that you cover with the test, 80 stories are covered with functional test. So this means basically that you have an 80%, and let's suppose that those 100 are all that can be automated. So 80% test automation coverage. Then this is the first one. So just remember, it goes on a story level, epic level, or area or functional area. You basically take the whole percentage of the scope of the project, and then you just try to see how many tests actually cover, or which tests cover which stories, and try to come up with a number. Generally, if you are between 70 and 80%, it is considered a good industry benchmark. So this is the first one. Let's then go in the second one. The second most important KPI that you want to track, which I really track but I don't see tracked many often, is the QA environmental coverage. So let's say that you are in a enterprise setting. You have development environment, you have test environment, and then you have production. Let's say that you want to keep 100% of the test in both environments as a general benchmark. Let's suppose that we have about 100 tests which can be automated. So let's say that we have 100 tests that are automated into the environment. And let's say that we set as a benchmark for all the environments, or let's say test, development and UAT, that we have about 100. This is the benchmark of tests that we should be able to get in those environments. In the development environment, it goes well, we have 100. So those two are similar, indeed it's okay. In test environment, for some reason, and this happens very often in companies, we may have 90. In production, let's say we get the 5% of the test, so only the 5 most critical run, and we have all 5. What happens is that in the different environments, we have a discrepancy in this one. So in many companies, what will happen is that due to test data issues, it may happen that there is a discrepancy between development and test environment, and in the actually on the whole flow, you may have missing some tests. So why is this important? Because let's say that you have the test coverage that you had previously, it was 80%, but actually you have some environments such as UAT where you are missing, you may be missing critical tests. So this is something that is not very seen in the industry, but is very important to track. So the QA environmental coverage. And I'll try to keep the video as short as possible, but as you may see, there is a lot of information. So let's start with right now with the defect leakage. So defect leakage is basically the number of bugs that reach production as a percentage of the total. So again, let's say that you have 100 bugs total. Let's say that 5 of those get into production. So 5 bugs reach production. You have a defect leakage close to 5%. And generally we should strive to get the number as little as possible and actually close this gap as much as we can. And not only in production, so let's say that we have dev, UAT and prod. What we like to do in QA robots is actually track it between also the earlier environments and actually optimize for the earlier environments to make this metric be better as a consequence. So that's the other metric, defect leakage, very important. You will be using it a lot in your QA journey. So we are on our third one. So the other important metric is the mean time to detect a defect. In this metric, what is important is which is the delta of time from where the issue happens and from where it's found. How do we tackle this? Is basically including on CI our test automation and making it run on pull request. Of course, you will not cover all the cases. So in this case, let's say that 80% of the whole volume of test is being done by the test automation. The whole 20% is done by exploratory testing. What you aim to do is to find bugs as soon as the release happens. So when you try to do this as effectively as possible, you have a test automation running on CI on commit level as well as on release level on each environment deployment. Then the 20%, which is covered by exploratory testing, you have a team of QAs which will be validating your feature as soon as the deploy happens. In this case, you try to keep the number of days from where the issue happens to when it's found below 1 day. And you can track this in Jira, for example, through a specific field that you wanna have in your bugs, in order for the QA team to spot the bugs as soon as possible and have this as a measurable metric. So we've seen till now the 4 metrics. So you have mean time to detect a defect, defect leakage, test automation coverage, and QA environmental coverage. Let's see for the last one what we will see. So for the last one, I would say we can do actually for the last one I will give you this, which is right now considered as a common problem with the test automation, but which shouldn't be, which is the flaky test percentage. What happens right now is that in most of teams, this goes beyond 5%. The cost of having so many flaky tests is basically that developers do not trust when tests are red. And so this means that basically releases happen anyway, even if you have a problem with your test cases that you developed for the test automation. And so all the work that you have done to create a test infrastructure goes out of the way. So how do we increase the responsibility through a test automation that is clear and shows the right results? We try to decrease this actual percentage, this 5% that you may see, below 3% as a overall number. How you do this? There are many ways. I will just touch upon the 2 main ways that I see teams bridging this gap, which is the usage of smart locators, which basically means not having fixated rules on XPaths, but allow also from the retrieval of the parent elements more easier, and using also contains statements inside the locators. So this is the first one. The second one is the usage of self-healing libraries. And this means basically a library that triggers in a test case that fails during runtime and replaces the locator that actually failed. I have created QArobots.org, which is an organizational page for my company that explains one of the libraries that we developed using AI and the OpenAI model. During runtime, whenever your locator fails, it triggers a retry mechanism, and an AI processing class goes to parse the current DOM and basically chunks it into pieces and communicates with OpenAI model to retrieve the specific locator that you need. How does it do that? Because you have a natural language description on your second locator, and this is only working for robot framework, by the way, but you can implement this in actually any framework, but we like robot framework, we are working with it. So with QArobots.org, basically you retrieve the wanted element by natural language description, so you get it in that way. So those two methods basically are how you fix for flaky tests most of the times. And then you have test data, which obviously we can go into deeper in another video. But yeah, those are the 5 main KPIs that you want to use in an enterprise setting or even a startup scale up, whenever you want to make an informed decision on whether you should proceed with a release or deployment. That's how we've done it, and that's where I've seen the most success from teams ranging from developers, product owners, and clients. So I think that's it for the video, and I'll see you next time.